Commander Zara Kalani stood on the observation deck of her world's command center, watching the stars with growing fear. Her skin, made of living crystal that changed colors with her emotions, glowed deep blue, the color of despair among her people, the Villani. 3 months ago, everything had been perfect on Villano's Prime. The Villani had lived in peace for over 3,000 years. They built beautiful cities that sparkled like jewels, created art that could make people cry with joy, and discovered amazing things about the universe. They had never fought a war, didn't even have weapons, but now everything was falling apart. Commander called out her assistant, Elder. This is his own crystal skin flashing worried yellow patterns. We've lost contact with the Karios colony. It makes 7 worlds in 2 weeks. Zara felt her skin shift to darker shades of blue. 7 worlds, 7 entire planets full of her people gone silent. She knew what that meant. Devourers had found them. The Devourers were nightmare creatures from the dark spaces between stars. They looked like giant insects, standing twice as tall as any Villani, with sharp claws that could cut through their strongest crystal steel like it was soft clay. But the worst part wasn't how they looked or how strong they were. The worst part was what they did to worlds. They ate everything, not just the people, though they did that too. They consumed entire planets. They stripped away the forests, drank the oceans, and even broke down the rocks for nutrients. When the Devourers were finished with a world, nothing was left but a dead ball of dust floating in space. Show me the readings from our deep space sensors, Zara ordered. The main screen lit up with a map of their solar system. Red dots showed where Devourer ships had been spotted. There were so many red dots that parts of the map looked like they were bleeding. They're everywhere, whispered These. Their bioships are surrounding our outer planets. We estimate at least 1,000 vessels, maybe more. Zara stared at the screen. 1,000 ships. Each one was a living creature the size of a city, bred for war and destruction. Her people had 12 patrol vessels designed for rescue work and scientific research. They weren't even armed. How long do we have? She asked. Our scientists think maybe 3 weeks before they reach Villano's Prime. Maybe less, if they decide to move faster. 3 weeks. In 3 weeks, the Devourers would arrive at her homeworld. They would kill everyone she had ever known and loved. They would destroy the beautiful cities, the amazing art, libraries full of knowledge her people had gathered over thousands of years. They would eat it all, and then move on to find the next world to destroy. Have any of the other worlds responded to our calls for help? Zara asked, though she already knew the answer. Tice's skin flickered with embarrassed orange patterns. The Keplerans sent their sympathy, but said they couldn't risk their own people. The Altarians offered to record our history so we wouldn't be completely forgotten. The Hegemony Council is meeting to discuss the situation, but he trailed off. But by the time they finished talking, the Villani would all be dead. Zara had heard this story before. The galaxy was full of peaceful species, but when the Devourers came, everyone ran away. No one fought back. No one even tried. Commander, said another voice from across the room. It was Dr. Vex Quinn, their best communications expert. I've an idea. It's desperate, but it might work. Zara turned to look at him. Dr. Quinn was old, even by Villani standards, and his crystal skin had faded to pale silver with age. But his mind was still sharp. Tell me, she said. We've been sending our distress calls to known civilizations, 2 species we've had contact with before. But what if we tried something different? What if we sent a signal to everyone, everywhere, even to worlds we've never heard of? That would take enormous amounts of power, Thesis pointed out. We'd have to use the planetary communication array at maximum strength. The energy drain alone could damage our power grid. Does it matter? Dr. Quinn asked quietly. In 3 weeks? There won't be anyone left to use the power grid. Zara felt her skin shift through several colors as she thought. It was a crazy plan. Sending a message to the entire galaxy would use up most of their remaining energy reserves. And for what? To call for help from strangers who probably didn't exist or wouldn't care? But what choice did they have? Do it, she said finally. Send the message to everyone. Every star system, every possible world. Tell them who we are, what's happening to us, and that we need help." Dr. Quinn nodded and hurried to his equipment. Within an hour, he had the massive planetary communication array ready. The device was originally built to talk to their colony worlds, but now it was being pushed far beyond its normal limits. "The message is ready, Commander," Dr. Quinn announced. "How should I word it?" Zara thought for a moment. "What do you say when your entire species is about to die? How do you ask strangers to risk their lives for people they've never met?" "Tell them the truth," she said. "Tell them we are the Villani of Villanos Prime. Tell them we have lived in peace for thousands of years. Tell them that creatures called the Devourers are coming to destroy our world and kill our people. Tell them we are not warriors, we don't know how to fight. But tell them we have knowledge, art, and science that we're willing to share with anyone who helps us. And tell them," her voice broke a little, "tell them we're scared and we're running out of time." Dr. Quinn typed the message into the communication system. When he was done, he looked up at Zara. "Should I send it?" "Send it," she said. "Send it to every star in the galaxy." The planetary array hummed with power. Energy coursed through the massive transmission dishes, and then the message was gone, racing across space faster than light itself. It would reach nearby star systems. In hours, distant ones in days or weeks. Now, all they could do was wait and hope. 3 days passed, no response. 5 days. Still nothing. On the 7th day, Elder Thesis brought bad news. "The Devourers have reached the Miko system. They're consuming the 4th planet. Our sensors show massive bioship activity." Zara's skin had been stuck on dark blue for days now. "How long until they finish there?" "Maybe a week. Then they'll move to the next system, and then to us. 2 weeks. They had 2 weeks left, and still no one had answered their call for help. On the 10th day, something changed. Dr. Quinn was at his communication station when he suddenly sat up straight. "Commander, I'm getting a response." Zara rushed over to his station. "From who?" "The Keplerans. The Altarians?" "No," Dr. Quinn said, looking confused. "It's from a system I've never heard of. A place called ... Earth?" Earth? The name meant nothing. To Zara, she had never heard of any species from a world called Earth. "What do they say?" she asked. Dr. Quinn activated the speakers and a strange voice filled the room. It was speaking in a language the Villani had never heard before, but their computers quickly translated it. "Villani Command, this is Captain Ben Parker of the Earth Defense Force ship Valiant. We received your distress call. We don't know who you are, but if someone's trying to wipe out your people, then we have a problem with them. We're coming to help. Hang on, the cavalry is on the way." The message ended, leaving the Villani Command Center in stunned silence. "Earth Defense Force?" Thesis asked. "I've never heard of them." "It doesn't matter," Zara said, feeling her skin shift to hopeful green for the first time in weeks. Someone answered. "Someone is coming." She didn't know it yet, but the Villani had just made contact with the most dangerous species in the galaxy. The Devourers were about to learn what happened. When you threaten humanity's friends, the cavalry was indeed on the way. Captain Ben Parker stood on the bridge of the Valiant, watching the stars shift back to normal view as his ship dropped out of hyperspace. What he saw made his stomach turn. The Villani star system looked like a graveyard. 3 of the 5 planets were dark, their surfaces stripped bare of everything that had once made them alive. Massive ships, if you could call them ships, floated around the dead worlds like vultures. These weren't metal vessels built in shipyards. They were living things, breathing and pulsing with their own heartbeats. "Jesus Christ," whispered Lieutenant Amy Foster, his tactical officer. She was a former Marine who had seen plenty of combat, but this was something different. "Those are the Devourers." Ben nodded grimly. The bioships were huge, some of them. Over a mile long, they looked like giant insects crossed with sea monsters, all teeth and claws and acid-dripping flesh. Just looking at them made his skin crawl. "Sir, called out Lieutenant Tony Walsh from the communications station. "I'm getting a signal from one of the inner planets. It's the Volani." "Put them through," Ben ordered. The main screen flickered to life, showing a figure that made several of his crew members gasp. The Volani looked almost human in shape, but their skin was made of what appeared to be living crystal. The patterns of light moving across their surface were beautiful, but also alien in a way that made Ben's instincts scream warnings. "Earth vessel," the alien said. "This is Commander Zara Kalani of the Volani Defense Council. We are grateful beyond words that you answered our call." Ben studied the alien commander. Despite the strange appearance, he could see intelligence and desperation in her eyes. "Commander Kalani, I'm Captain Ben Parker. We came as fast as we could." "What's the situation, Dyer?" she replied. "The Devourers have consumed 3 of our worlds. They will reach Volanos Prime in less than a week. We have maybe 2 billion people left alive in our entire civilization. 2 billion people." Ben felt the weight of that number settle on his shoulders. Earth's entire population was 8 billion, and he couldn't imagine losing a quarter of them. "We need to meet in person," Ben said. "Can you send a shuttle to my ship?" "I will come myself," Commander Kalani replied. "But I must warn you, my people are very different from yours. We have lived in peace for thousands of years. We do not understand war or violence. Some of my advisors are concerned about your species, concerned about us?" Amy Foster asked, frowning. "We're here to help them." Ben held up a hand to quiet her. "We'll be respectful, Commander. Send your shuttle when you're ready." An hour later, the Volani shuttle docked with the Valiant. Ben had assembled a small team to meet their guests. Dr. Sarah Kim, their best scientist, Chief Diplomat Robert Chen, and Amy Foster, because he wanted a military perspective. The airlock opened, and Commander Kalani stepped through, followed by 2 other Volani. The moment they saw the humans, all 3 aliens froze. Ben had expected some reaction, but the Volani looked genuinely terrified. Their crystal skin shifted to colors he had never seen before, deep purples and flashing reds, that somehow conveyed pure fear. "By the eternal light," one of the Volani whispered. "They have predator eyes." Ben glanced at his team, confused. "Predator eyes?" Dr. Sarah Kim stepped forward, her voice gentle. "I think they mean our forward-facing eyes. Most prey animals have eyes on the sides of their heads to watch for danger. Predators have eyes in front to track their prey." "You evolved from hunters, Commander," Kalani said, her voice filled with what sounded like horror. "Your entire species descended from creatures that killed other beings to survive." "Yes," Dr. Kim said carefully. "But we also developed agriculture, art, philosophy, science. Do you still engage in warfare?" The second Volani interrupted. "Do you fight with your own kind?" The question hung in the air like a bomb. Ben looked at his team, wondering how to answer. Earth had just come through World War III 20 years ago. They still had armies, navies, and weapons that could destroy entire cities. "Yes," Ben said finally. "We still have conflicts sometimes, but we also have peace treaties, trade agreements, and we work together when we face outside threats." The Volani seemed to shrink back from this admission. Their skin color shifted to what Ben was beginning to recognize as deep distress. "How is this possible?" the third Volani asked. "How did your species survive to develop space travel if you spent your time killing each other?" Amy Foster had been quiet during the exchange, but now she spoke up. "With respect, Commander, how did your species survive to develop space travel if you never learned to fight? What happened when you encountered dangerous animals or natural disasters or resource shortages?" The question seemed to stump the Volani. Commander Kalani's skin flickered through several colors before she answered. "Our world had no large predators. Our climate was stable. We had abundant resources. We developed cooperation and sharing as our primary survival traits. But what about competition?" Dr. Kim asked, genuinely curious. "Evolution usually involves some form of competition for resources. We learned to expand resources rather than compete for them," Commander Kalani explained. "When food was scarce in one area, We developed better farming techniques. When space was limited, we built upward and downward. We found solutions through cooperation, not conflict. Ben was beginning to understand why the Villani were so helpless. Against the Devourers, they had never learned to fight because they had never needed to. They were like a species of sheep who had never encountered wolves. The meeting was interrupted by an urgent call from the bridge. Captain Parker, we have Devourer ships approaching. They're moving toward a Villani transport vessel. On our way, Ben said. He turned to Commander Kalani. You're about to see how humans deal with threats. The group rushed to the bridge, where the main screen showed a Villani transport ship fleeing from 3 Devourer bioships. The alien vessels were closing fast, their organic hulls pulsing with what looked like anticipation. All hands to battle. Stations, Ben ordered. Amy, target those Devourer ships. Use the new plasma cannons. Sir, we don't know how they'll react to our weapons, Amy warned. Then we're about to find out. Fire when ready. The Valiant's weapons lit up space with brilliant beams of energy. The first Devourer ship took a direct hit and exploded in a shower of organic debris. The second ship tried to turn away, but Amy's second shot caught it in what might have been its brain. It went dead in space, drifting like a lifeless whale. The third Devourer ship launched some kind of bioweapon at the Valiant. A living projectile that screamed through space with apparent intelligence. Amy shot it down with the ship's defensive lasers, then put a third plasma beam through the attacking vessel's center mass. The entire battle lasted less than 3 minutes. The bridge was silent except for the hum of the ship's engines. Ben turned to look at the Villani, who were staring at the screen in what appeared to be shock. You destroyed them so easily, Commander Kalani whispered. 3 Devourer ships, and you killed them in minutes. They weren't expecting organized resistance, Amy explained. Most of their tactics seem to be based on overwhelming fear and panic. When someone fights back with proper weapons and tactics, they're not as tough as they look. Elder Thies is one of the Villani who had remained quiet. Until now, spoke up. Your species, ... You are very good at destruction. Or good at survival, Ben corrected. Sometimes survival requires destroying things that want to kill you. Commander Kalani's skin had shifted to a color Ben had never seen before, a swirling mix of blue, green, and silver. Captain Parker, I must ask you something directly. Are you more dangerous than the Devourers? Ben considered the question carefully. It was important to get this right. The Villani needed to trust humans, but they also needed to understand what they were dealing with. Commander, he said finally, the Devourers are killers. They destroy because it's their nature. But humans are survivors. We destroy threats so we can protect what we care about. Right now, we care about keeping your people alive. And if we become a threat to you, she asked. Ben looked at the alien commander, seeing the genuine fear in her eyes. Then you don't become a threat. It's that simple. We're here to help you, not conquer you. But we're also here to make sure the Devourers don't destroy anyone else. Amy Foster stepped forward. Commander, can I ask you something? In all your thousands of years of peace, did you ever encounter any species like the Devourers? No, Commander Kalani admitted. We had heard rumors, stories from the edge of the galaxy. But we never believed, we never thought such creatures could really exist. They exist, Ben said grimly. And from what we've seen, they're not going to stop with your worlds. They're going to keep consuming and growing until someone stops them. Can you stop them? Commander Kalani asked. Ben looked at his tactical officer, who gave him a small nod. Amy Foster had studied the Devourer bioships during the battle. She had that look in her eyes that said she was already planning their destruction. Yes, Ben said. We can stop them. But you need to understand something, Commander. The way we fight wars might be very different from anything your people have ever seen. We don't just defend, we attack. We don't just survive. We make sure the threat can never come back. Commander Kalani's skin shifted to deep purple again. You mean you would hunt them down and kill them all? If that's what it takes to protect innocent people? Yes. The Villani were quiet for a long moment. Finally, Commander Kalani spoke. Captain Parker, my people are dying. Our children are crying in fear. Our elderly are saying goodbye to everything they've ever known. If your methods can save them, they can, Ben said firmly. But you need to be sure. Once we start this fight, we're going to finish it. And the galaxy's going to learn that humans don't abandon their friends. Commander Kalani looked at her. Advisors, then back at Ben. Then we accept your help. All of it. Ben nodded. Good. Now, let's go save your people and teach these devourers what happens when they pick on species under human protection. The war for the Villani survival was about to begin, and the galaxy would never be the same. News of the human intervention spread across the galaxy faster than anyone thought possible. On the beautiful water world of Kaploran, Ambassador Nix, Thylan floated in his meditation pool, reading reports that made his tentacles curl with worry. These humans, he said to his aide, they don't make sense. Look at this tactical analysis. The aide, a younger Kepleron named Vel Saren, swam closer to examine the data floating on the water's surface. 3 Devourer bioships destroyed in under 3 minutes. It has to be a mistake. No mistake, Nix replied, his skin shifting to troubled gray patterns. I've confirmed it with multiple sources. The humans appeared in the Villani System 5 days ago. Since then, they've destroyed over 30 Devourer vessels without losing a single ship. Vel's tentacles twitched with confusion. But the Devourers have been unstoppable for centuries. Every species that has tried to fight them has been consumed. Every species until now, Nix said grimly. The humans are something new. They fight. Like the Devourers, but they don't consume what they conquer. They protect it. On the crystal cities of Altair Prime, High Arbitrator Ven was having similar concerns. The Altarians had maintained peace in their sector for over 2,000 years through careful diplomacy and avoiding conflict. They faced something unprecedented. Show me the footage again, Ven ordered his intelligence officer. The holographic display showed the battle near Villanos Prime. Human ships moved with precise coordination, their weapons striking Devourer bioships with devastating effect. But what worried Ven most wasn't the destruction, it was the efficiency. They're not fighting like desperate defenders, he observed. They're fighting like apex predators. Look at their formations, their targeting priorities. They're not just trying to survive their hunting. Meanwhile, in the Villani system, the alliance between humans and Villani was growing stronger, but also more complex. Chief Engineer Danny Cruz worked alongside Villani scientists in a research facility that buzzed with activity. The problem, Danny explained to Dr. Lex Thyron, the Villani's top engineer, is that your manufacturing systems are designed for creation, not destruction. Every time we try to adapt our weapons technology to your production methods, your computers refuse to cooperate. Dr. Theron's crystal skin flickered with embarrassed orange. Our artificial intelligence systems have built-in safeguards against creating anything designed to harm living beings. It's been part of our technology for over 1,000 years. We need to work around that, Danny said. Because what we're building isn't really meant to harm living beings. It's meant to harm things that want to kill living beings. There's a difference. The breakthrough came when Dr. Sarah Kim discovered something crucial about Devourer biology. She had been studying tissue samples from the destroyed bioships when she noticed something strange. Captain! She called to Ben Parker over the intercom. You need to see this. Ben arrived at the science lab to find Sarah examining what looked like brain tissue under a powerful microscope. What have you found? The Devourers aren't really individual creatures, Sarah explained. Each bioship is controlled by a central nervous system, but that system is connected to something else. Look at these neural pathways. Ben studied the images on the screen. Even to his untrained eye, the patterns looked wrong somehow. What am I looking at? Communication channels, Sarah said excitedly. Every Devourer we've killed has been connected to some kind of hive mind. They're not making independent decisions. They're following orders from a central intelligence. Central? Ben asked. I think there's something like a queen or a master brain somewhere controlling the entire swarm. If we could find it and destroy it, the whole swarm might collapse, Ben finished. Like cutting the head off a snake. The implications were enormous. But finding the Devourer command center would require taking the fight to them. and that meant going on the offensive. General Patricia Hayes arrived from Earth 3 days later, with a fleet of 20 ships and a plan that made the Volani question everything they thought they knew about warfare. "We're not going to wait for them to attack," she announced during the joint strategy meeting. "We're going to hit their supply lines, their staging areas, and their advanced scouts. We're going to make them afraid to operate in this sector." Commander Zara Kalani's skin showed deep purple distress. "General, we appreciate your help, but the idea of attacking them in their own territory, it seems so aggressive." "It is aggressive," General Hayes replied calmly. "That's the point. Right now, the Devourers think they're dealing with helpless prey. We need to teach them they're wrong." The first offensive operation was a raid on a Devourer supply depot 3 systems away. Lieutenant Amy Foster led a squadron of fast attack ships against a facility that was consuming asteroids to feed the bioships. The battle was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Human ships darted between the massive Devourer vessels like angry wasps, striking with precision and disappearing before the enemy could respond. The bioships, designed to overwhelm through brute force, couldn't adapt to the humans' hit-and-run tactics. Within 6 hours, the supply depot was destroyed, along with 15 Devourer vessels. The humans lost 3 ships, but their crews were rescued by their wingmen before the bioships could capture them. The raid's success sent shockwaves through the galactic community. For the first time in recorded history, someone had successfully attacked to devour a stronghold. On Altair Prime, High Arbitrator Ven called an emergency session of the Hegemony Council. Representatives from 12 major civilizations gathered in the Crystal Chamber to discuss what they were calling the human problem. "They've been in space for less than 50 years, complained Ambassador Trix Valen of the Centauri Republic. "How can they be so effective at warfare?" "Perhaps," suggested Delegate Quinn Morse of the Andromedan League, "it's because they've never stopped fighting. While we've spent centuries pursuing peace and enlightenment, they've been perfecting the art of war." High Arbitrator Ven activated the main display, showing tactical data from the recent human operations. "Look at their methods. They don't just defend, they gather intelligence, identify weaknesses, and strike with overwhelming force at precisely the right moment. They're not fighting like a desperate species trying to survive. They're fighting like a species that has been preparing for this war their entire evolutionary history." The discussion was interrupted by an urgent message from the Hegemony's Intelligence Division. Admiral Rick Thompson, representing Earth's government, had requested a meeting with the Hegemony leadership. "They want to..." "What?" Ven asked. "Want to explain their actions and discuss long-term galactic security," his aide replied. "The human admiral says they believe the Devourer threat extends beyond the Volani system." 3 days later, Admiral Thompson stood before the Hegemony Council in a scene that would become legendary in galactic history. The human was calm, confident, and completely unimpressed by the grandeur of the assembled alien leaders. "Honored representatives," he began, "I'm here to discuss a simple fact. The Devourers are not going to stop with the Volani. They're going to keep consuming worlds until someone stops them permanently." High Arbitrator Ven leaned forward in his crystalline chair. "Admiral Thompson, while we appreciate your species' assistance to the Volani, we are concerned about your methods. Your weapons are extremely destructive, and your tactics are disturbing to peaceful civilizations." "I understand your concern," Thompson replied. "But let me ask you a question. How many species have the Devourers consumed while you've been having diplomatic discussions about how to handle them?" The question hung in the air like an accusation. Several representatives shifted uncomfortably. In their seats, Ambassador Valen spoke up. "That's not fair, Admiral. We can't risk our own populations in what might be a hopeless fight." "You're right," Thompson agreed. "It might be hopeless. But do you know what's definitely hopeless?" Sitting back and hoping the Devourers will eventually go away on their own? "What do you propose?" Ben asked. Thompson activated a holographic display showing the galactic arm where the Devourers had been most active. "We propose a coordinated defense network. Species that want protection contribute resources and intelligence. In return, human forces guarantee their security against external threats. And if we refuse," Delegate Morse asked. Thompson's expression didn't change. but something in his eyes made several representatives lean back in their chairs. Then you're on your own when the Devourers come for you. We're not going to force anyone to accept our help. But we're also not going to risk human lives defending people who won't stand with us. The implications were clear. Humanity was offering protection, but only to those willing to be allies. Everyone else would face the galaxy's dangers alone. This is essentially a protection racket, Ambassador Valen protested. Join us, or face the consequences. No, Thompson corrected. This is natural selection on a galactic scale. Species that adapt and work together survive. Species that don't. Well, ask the Devourer's previous victims how isolation worked out for them. High Arbitrator Venn called for a recess, and the representatives huddled in worried groups. They had wanted to control or limit human expansion. Instead, they were being offered a choice. Join humanity's growing alliance, or face the universe's dangers alone. When the session resumed, Venn made the announcement that would reshape galactic politics. The Hegemony Council requests more time to consider your proposal, Admiral Thompson. Thompson stood and gathered his materials. Of course. Take all the time you need. But remember, the Devourers aren't waiting for you to make up your minds. As the human admiral left the chamber, Delegate Morse turned to his colleagues. Did he just threaten us? No, Venn replied, his skin shifting to worried gray. He just explained reality, and that might be even more terrifying. Back in the Villani system, the war continued to escalate. Human forces had destroyed over 100 Devourer vessels, but the aliens kept coming. More disturbing, they were adapting to human tactics, developing new bioweapons and more sophisticated strategies. Captain Ben Parker stood on the bridge of the Valiant. Reports. They're learning from us, he told Amy Foster. Each battle, they adjust their methods. Then we adjust faster, Amy replied. That's what humans do best. We evolve. But even as the humans adapted their tactics, word of their capabilities spread. Throughout the galaxy, species that had never heard of Earth were now asking their governments about the human question. Some wanted alliance. Others wanted the humans contained or eliminated before they became too powerful. On Kepleron, Ambassador Nix Thylon floated in his meditation pool, contemplating a message that had just arrived from the Villani system. Commander Zara Kalani had sent a formal request for Kepleron assistance in the war against the Devourers. What should we tell them? Asked his aide, Velsarin. Nix's tentacles curled with the weight of the decision. Tell them we're considering their request, but also tell them something else. Tell them that the galaxy is watching what happens in their system. And what they're seeing is changing everything they thought they knew about survival. The Devourers had wanted to consume the Villani, but instead, they had awakened something far more dangerous, a species that didn't just fight to survive, but fought to win. And the galaxy was beginning to realize that maybe in a universe full of predators, having the most dangerous predators on your side wasn't such a bad thing after all. The warning came from the deepest. Space sensors. Automated stations that had been monitoring the galactic core for centuries. Dr. Sarah Kim was the first to see the readings. And what she saw made her blood run cold. Captain Parker, she called over the intercom, her voice tight with fear. Need to get to the science lab immediately. Ben Parker arrived to find Sarah staring at a holographic display that showed the outer edge of the galaxy. A massive red blip was moving toward the Villani system, and it was bigger than anything they had ever seen. What am I looking at? Asked the broodmother, Sarah said quietly. The central intelligence controlling all the Devourers. It's coming here personally. Ben studied the readings. The creature was enormous, easily the size of a small moon. Round it, hundreds of bioships formed a protective swarm that stretched across several light years of space. It gets here? He asked. 3 days, Sarah replied. Maybe less, if it decides to move faster. Ben felt his stomach drop. 3 days to prepare for a battle against an enemy that could probably destroy entire planets by itself. What do we know about its capabilities? Not much, Sarah admitted. But based on the energy readings, it's not just a command ship. A weapon. A living weapon designed to consume entire star systems. The news reached General Patricia Hayes within minutes. Her response was immediate and unexpected. She ordered the complete evacuation of all human personnel from the Volani. System Gondarzar. Kalani's skin flashed through colors that didn't exist in any human language when she received the message. "You're leaving us?" she asked during the emergency communication with the human fleet. "We're not leaving you," General Hayes replied. Calmly, "We're giving you what humans call plausible deniability for what happens next." Captain Parker stepped forward. "Commander Kalani, we need you to move all your people to the far side of your system. Get as much distance as possible between your population and the battle zone." "What are you planning?" she asked. Though the fear in her voice suggested she already suspected, Dr. Sarah Kim had spent weeks studying the broodmother's biology through long-range sensors. She had discovered something that changed everything about how they would fight this war. The massive creature wasn't just a command center. It was the living heart of the entire Devourer network. Every bioship, every warrior, every weapon was connected to it through biological links that spanned the galaxy. "If we can kill the broodmother," Sarah explained to the Joint Command Staff, "the entire Devourer species becomes helpless. They'll lose coordination, intelligence, everything that makes them dangerous." "And how do we kill something the size of a moon?" asked Danny Cruz, the chief engineer. General Hayes activated a classified holographic display. What appeared was a weapon that made several officers step back in shock. It looked like a massive torpedo, but the energy readings were unlike anything in conventional warfare. "This is a modified fusion device," Hayes explained. "We've adapted Earth's most powerful weapons for use against biological targets. It doesn't just destroy, it renders entire regions of space toxic to organic life for decades." The room fell silent. Even the human officers looked uncomfortable with what they were seeing. Lieutenant Amy Foster was the first to speak. "General, that's a weapon of mass destruction. Galactic community will never forgive us for using something like that. It's better to be feared and alive than loved and extinct." Hayes replied coldly. "The broodmother has to die, and this is the only weapon we have that can guarantee its destruction." Commander Kalani's image flickered on the communication screen. "General Hayes, what you're describing. It sounds like you're planning to poison an entire star system." "Only temporarily," Hayes said. "The radiation will clear in 50 to 60 years. Your people can resettle then. 60 years. Kalani's skin shifted to colors of pure horror. "You're talking about making our home uninhabitable for 2 generations. Where were you? "Talking about making sure you have future generations," Ben Parker said gently. "Commander, if we don't stop the broodmother here, it will consume every inhabited world in this sector. Then it will move to the next sector, and the next, until the entire galaxy is dead." The debate continued for hours, but in the end, there was no choice. The Volani agreed to evacuate their populations to emergency shelters on the far side of their system, while the human fleet prepared for the most dangerous battle in galactic history, the Brood. Mother arrived exactly when Sarah's calculations predicted. It dropped out of hyperspace like a living nightmare, its massive bulk blotting out entire starfields. The creature was covered in what looked like cities' organic structures that pulsed with their own light. Thousands of bioships poured out, of openings in its surface like antibodies responding to an infection. "Oh my God," whispered Tony Walsh from the communications station. "It's not just a ship. It's a whole civilization." Ben Parker stood on the bridge of the Valiant watching the enemy force deploy. The human fleet looked tiny compared to the Devourer swarm, but they had one advantage the enemy didn't expect. They weren't planning to fight fair. "All ships, implement Plan Omega," Ben ordered. "Amy, take your strike team and get ready for the final run." Lieutenant Amy Foster led a squadron of the smallest, fastest ships humanity had ever built. They were stealth vessels, designed to slip past enemy defenses and deliver their deadly cargo to the broodmother's core. Each ship carried a single modified fusion device, and each pilot knew this was a one-way mission. The battle began when the Devourer swarm reached the outer edge of the Volani system. Human ships opened fire with everything they had, not trying to win, but trying to create chaos and confusion. Plasma beams and missile volleys lit up space as the two fleets clashed. The Devourers fought like they always had, with overwhelming numbers and brute force. But this time, their enemies fought back with tactics the bioships had never encountered. Human vessels used the system's asteroid field for cover, set traps with mines and hidden weapon platforms, and coordinated their attacks with precision. That seemed almost supernatural. Captain Ben Parker commanded the fleet from the center of the battle, a ship darting between massive bioships while coordinating the overall strategy. "Annie, how are our power levels?" he called to the engineering station. "Holding steady, Captain," Danny Cruz replied. "We can't keep this up forever. Those bioships are adapting to our weapon frequencies." "They don't need to hold forever," Ben said. "Just long enough for Amy to do her job." Lieutenant Amy Foster's strike team was fighting its way through the Devourer swarm, toward the Broodmother. The massive creature had noticed the small ships approaching and was deploying its defenses, living weapons that moved through space like hunting predators. "Stay in formation," Amy ordered her pilots. "Remember, we only need one ship to get through." The bioweapons were fast and deadly, but they were designed to hunt large targets, not tiny stealth ships. Amy's squadron split up, forcing the defenders to chase multiple targets at once. One by one, the human ships were destroyed. But each loss got the survivors closer to their target. Finally, only Amy's ship remained. She was less than 100 miles from the Broodmother's surface when the creature's final defenses activated. Massive tentacles emerged from the organic hull, reaching for her ship with obvious intelligence. "Amy," Ben Parker's voice crackled over the radio. "You don't have to do this. We can find another way." "Negative, Captain," Amy replied, her voice calm despite the mortal danger around her. "This is what humans do. We protect our friends, no matter the cost." She fired her engines to maximum and dove toward what her sensors indicated was the Broodmother's nerve center. The tentacles closed around her ship, just as she triggered the fusion device. The explosion was visible from 3 star systems away. The Broodmother died in a cascade of bioluminescent fire that lasted for hours. But more importantly, every Devourer in the galaxy suddenly stopped moving, without the Broodmother's controlling intelligence. The bioships became as helpless as insects without a queen. They drifted through space, their complex systems shutting down one by one. The few that tried to continue fighting moved with confused, uncoordinated patterns that made them easy targets. Within 6 hours, the Devourer threat was effectively over. A species that had terrorized the galaxy for millennia was extinct, destroyed by weapons and tactics they had never imagined possible. But the victory came with a price that horrified the galactic community. The explosion had created a radiation field that would make the entire Villani system uninhabitable for decades. More disturbing to many species was the realization of what humanity was capable of when truly threatened. Commander Zara Kalani stood on the observation deck of a refugee ship, watching the distant glow of her poisoned homeworld. Her people were safe, but they were also homeless, dependent on the charity of aliens who were still trying to understand what they had witnessed. "Commander," said Eldodesis, approaching with a communication pad, receiving messages from across the galaxy. Dozens of species are offering aid, refuge, even permanent settlement rights. "Why?" she asked, though she suspected she already knew the answer. "Because they're afraid," Thesis replied. "They saw what the humans did to save us, and they're terrified of what might happen if they become humanity's enemies." Kalani's skin shifted 2 thoughtful silver patterns. "The humans saved us by becoming something more frightening than the creatures that wanted to destroy us." "Yes," Thesis agreed. "The question is, what does that mean for the galaxy?" The answer would come soon enough. News of the Battle of Villanos Prime was spreading to every inhabited world, and with it came a new understanding of humanity's place. In the galactic order, Earth had announced itself not as a peaceful neighbor, but as a species that would do absolutely anything to protect its allies. Some worlds began sending diplomatic messages to Earth, hoping to secure protection. Others started building weapons, afraid that humanity might someday turn its attention to them. But everyone understood that the galaxy had changed forever. The Devourers were gone. But they had been replaced by something even more dangerous. A species that fought not just to survive, but to win, no matter the cost. And somewhere in the ruins of the Villani system, the radiation continued to glow, a permanent reminder of what happened when humanity's friends were threatened. 6 months. After the Battle of Villanos Prime, the galaxy was a very different place. Admiral Ben Parker stood in his new office, aboard the orbital station humanity had built at the edge of human space, reading reports that would have seemed impossible just a year ago. 43 species had requested formal protection agreements. With Earth, 17 others had asked for military advisors to help them develop their own defensive capabilities. And 3 major galactic powers had quietly begun building weapons based on captured human technology. The hegemony is meeting again, announced Captain Linda Martinez, Ben's new aide. We're calling it an emergency session on galactic security, but everyone knows it's really about us.
Oh.
Ben set down the reports and looked out at the stars.
Oh.
Human ships patrolled the space lanes alongside vessels from a dozen different species. The sight still amazed him. 2 years ago, humanity had been alone in the universe. Now they were at the center of the largest military alliance in galactic history. "Any word from the Villani?" he asked. Commander Kalani sent her weekly report. Linda replied, "The refugee settlements on Kepleron and Altair Prime are doing well. The Villani children are adapting faster than the adults. Some of them are even asking to join human ship crews when they grow up." Ben smiled at that. The Villani children had been fascinated by human stories of adventure and exploration. They were still peaceful by nature, but they had learned that sometimes peace required strength to defend it. The door chimed, and General Patricia Hayes entered with a stack of intelligence reports. Her expression was serious, which usually meant bad news. "What now?" Ben asked. "We have a problem," Hayes said, activating the room's holographic display. "Remember what Dr. Kim found in the old Devourer territories? Evidence that they were running from something?" Ben felt his stomach tighten. The Silent Reapers, our deep space sensors, have detected massive energy signatures moving in from the galactic edge. Hayes continued. Whatever drove the Devourers out of their home galaxy is heading this way. The hologram showed a sector map with dozens of red indicators, moving slowly but steadily toward inhabited space. Each indicator represented something larger than the biggest human battleship, and they were moving in perfect formation. "How long until they get here?" Ben asked. "At their current speed, maybe 2 years," Hayes replied. "But that assumes they maintain their current course and don't speed up when they detect our presence." Ben studied the tactical data. The approaching fleet was massive, easily 10 times larger than the Devourer swarm that had nearly destroyed the Villani. But humanity wasn't the same species that had stumbled into the Devourer War 6 months ago. "What's our current military strength?" he asked. Linda consulted her tablet. The Terran Protection Pact now includes 57 species. Combined fleet strength is over 8,000 vessels, with more being built every month. We have defense platforms around 43 star systems and early warning networks covering most of this galactic arm, and our allies. "That's where it gets interesting," Hayes said with a slight smile. "The Villani have surprised everyone. They may be peaceful, but they're incredibly smart. They've designed new types of sensors and communication systems that have doubled our early warning capabilities. The Keplerans have developed bioweapons that work specifically against machine intelligences. Even the Altarians have contributed. They've created diplomatic protocols for first contact with potentially hostile species." Ben was impressed. The species that had once been helpless victims were now contributing to their own defense. "What about the hegemony?" Hayes' expression darkened. "We're still trying to limit our expansion." "High Arbitrator," Ben is convinced. 6 species to form what they're calling a neutral bloc. They won't join our alliance, but they also won't actively oppose us. "And when the Silent Reapers arrive?" Ben asked. "Then they'll find out if neutrality is enough to protect them," Hayes replied coldly. The emergency session of the Hegemony Council took place on Altair Prime, in the same crystal chamber where Admiral Thompson had first explained humanity's position 6 months earlier. But this time, the atmosphere was very different. High Arbitrator Venn no longer looked confident and in control. The representatives of the major galactic powers seemed nervous, constantly glancing at their communication devices for updates from their homeworlds. "The human fleet movements are becoming increasingly aggressive," complained Ambassador Trix Valen of the Centauri Republic. "They've established military bases in 12 systems without consulting the galactic community." "Those systems requested our protection," Admiral Thompson replied calmly. "We don't force our presence on anyone." "But you don't discourage it either," Delegate Quinn Morse accused. "Your species seems to thrive on conflict and expansion." Thompson stood and activated his own holographic display, showing the same intelligence data that Ben Parker had seen earlier. The representatives fell silent as they saw the approaching threat. "In approximately 2 years," Thompson said, "we will face an enemy that makes the Devourers look like insects. These silent reapers destroyed the Devourers' home galaxy and forced them to flee here. They're not interested in consuming worlds. They're interested in harvesting entire star systems for raw materials." High Arbitrator Venn's crystalline skin shifted to worried gray. "How do you know this?" "'Cause we found their previous victims," Thompson replied. "Entire sectors of dead space where stars have been dismantled and planets have been stripped down to their basic elements. These machines don't just kill civilizations, they erase them completely." The chamber was silent for a long moment. Finally, Ambassador Valen spoke up. "What do you propose?" "The same thing we proposed 6 months ago," Thompson said. "Unity, cooperation, a coordinated defense that gives us a chance to survive." "If we refuse?" Delegate Morse asked. Thompson's expression didn't change, but his next words sent chills through every representative in the chamber. "Then you'll face them alone. And based on what we've seen of their capabilities, that means you'll die alone." The meeting adjourned without a formal decision, but within days, 3 more species had requested admission to the Terran Protection Pact. Fear, it seemed, was a powerful motivator. On the refugee world of New Velenos, Commander Zara Kalani was dealing with her own challenges. Her people had adapted remarkably well to life on multiple worlds, but they were struggling with a philosophical crisis. "The children want to learn human fighting techniques," reported Elder Thesis during their weekly council meeting. "They say they want to protect themselves so they never have to depend on others again." Kalani's skin shifted through complex patterns of blue and silver. "And how do you feel about that?" "Conflicted," Thesis admitted. "We spent 3,000 years believing that violence was never the answer. But the humans saved us through violence. If they hadn't been willing to fight and die for us, our entire species would be extinct. So we adapt," Kalani said finally. "We learn to defend ourselves without losing who we are. We become strong enough to protect what we love." The first graduation ceremony for the Vellani Defense Corps took place 6 weeks later. 50 young Vellani, their crystal skin glowing with pride and determination, received their commissions as officers in the joint human Vellani fleet. Ben Parker attended the ceremony as a guest of honor. Watching the young aliens take their oaths of service, he was struck by how much the galaxy had changed. These were still peaceful people, but they had learned that sometimes peace required strength. "You should be proud, Commander," Kalani told him after the ceremony. "Your species didn't just save our bodies, you saved our spirit. We're not helpless anymore." Ben nodded, but his thoughts were on the approaching threat. "Commander, I need to ask you something. When the Silent Reapers arrive, they're going to be more dangerous than anything we've faced before. Are your people ready for that kind of war?" Kalani's skin shifted to patterns of determination and resolve. "Admiral Parker, my people have learned something important from yours. We've learned that sometimes the only way to preserve life is to be willing to fight for it. When the Silent Reapers come, they'll find us ready." The final preparation for the coming war took place in the orbital shipyards above Earth. Humanity's most advanced weapons and the combined knowledge of 60 species were being forged into a fleet that would either save the galaxy or die trying. Dr. Sarah Kim, a director of the Joint Research Project, presented her findings to the assembled fleet commanders. The Silent Reapers are machine intelligences, but they're not like any artificial intelligence we've encountered before. They're quantum-based entities that exist partially outside normal spacetime. Our conventional weapons will have limited effectiveness. What do you recommend? Asked Admiral Hayes. We need to fight them on multiple levels simultaneously, Sarah replied. Physical weapons, quantum disruption devices, and something we've never tried before, psychic warfare. Idea came from the Villani themselves. Their crystal-based biology made them naturally sensitive to quantum fields, and they had developed techniques for disrupting machine intelligence through focused mental energy. It sounds like science fiction, commented Captain Danny Cruz. 6 months ago, so did faster-than-light travel, Sarah replied. We're facing an enemy that exists partially outside our reality. We need weapons that can reach them wherever they are. The first test of the new weapons took place in an empty star system on the Galactic Rim. A small Silent Reaper scout ship had been detected by the early warning network, and the Joint Fleet moved to intercept it. The enemy vessel was unlike anything they had ever seen. It looked more like a geometric equation than a ship, constantly shifting between different configurations as if it couldn't decide what shape it wanted to be. All ships commence attack, ordered Admiral Parker. The battle lasted 3 hours and taught humanity everything they needed to know about their new enemy. The Silent Reapers were incredibly advanced, but they had one crucial weakness. They couldn't adapt to irrational, creative thinking. Their machine logic struggled to predict human tactical innovations. When the scout ship was finally destroyed, the crew of the Valiant made a discovery that changed everything. The ship's quantum core contained data about the entire Silent Reaper fleet, including their ultimate destination. They're not just coming to destroy us, Sarah reported grimly. They're coming to harvest our galaxy's core. If they succeed, every star in the galaxy will go dark within a century. The stakes couldn't be higher. This wasn't just about protecting individual worlds or species. It was about preserving the very fabric of space that made life possible. Admiral Ben Parker stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking out at the largest fleet in galactic history. Human ships flew alongside Villani science vessels, Kepleron bioships, Altarian diplomatic cruisers, and vessels from dozens of other species. They were united not by conquest or politics, but by the simple desire to survive, Admiral reported. Captain Martinez, long-range sensors are detecting massive quantum disturbances at the galactic edge. The Silent Reapers have begun their final approach. Ben nodded and opened a channel to all ships in the fleet. This is Admiral Parker to all vessels. In a few hours, we're going to face an enemy that has destroyed entire galaxies. They think we're just another collection of primitive species waiting to be harvested. They're about to learn that they've made a serious mistake. He paused, looking at the thousands of ships stretching to the horizon. The aliens who sent that first distress call thought they were getting help from just another spacefaring species. Instead, they got humanity, and humanity doesn't abandon its friends. Today, we show the universe what happens when you threaten our home. The fleet began moving toward the galactic edge, where sensors detected thousands of quantum signatures. Approaching at near light speed, the battle for the galaxy was about to begin, and for the first time in their history. The Silent Reapers were going to face an enemy that fought not just to survive, but to protect something greater than themselves. The aliens had sent an SOS, and gotten Earth's most dangerous species. Now the galaxy would discover if that was enough to save them all.